Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Thunder, and this is Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. So, all kinds of stuff is going on. We've not been able to do a show since a couple weeks ago, but Getting Ish Done is about getting ish done. And Ike has been productive. I've been productive. And we want to help you to be productive. We're going to take a look at 10 keys to success. And this is a video where Nipsey Hussle is articulating his keys to success. His keys to success. So we're going to take a look at this and have a thought-provoking conversation. And we look forward to the other side of the intro. Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Let's go. Warning. Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. What's happening, man?
What him up, what him up, what him up, what him up? How's it going?
It's all right. It's all right. Getting it in, getting it done, all that stuff. So now I did a video on this earlier today, Car Thunder actually, on this whole Tucker Carlson business. Last night, Dr. Ronald Neal did a video, and he sort of was connecting sort of Tucker, Don Lemon, and also Tiffany Cross, who some months ago was dismissed from MSNBC. And an aspect of what he was saying was he was taking this to be sort of an opportunity for folks that are in the the sort of manosphere spaces, independent media, where a lot of folks are sort of are not really watching cable news, or not really watching. They haven't been watching major media outlets anyway, and so now they're sort of rushing to YouTube and podcasts and all kinds of their for their information. And so he was saying that he thought that this may present actually a good opportunity for folks. You have in Tucker Carlson, you have someone that was clearly on the right, but was very critical of Republicans, was critical of this sort of nation building, neocon sort of thing. Of course, was critical of cancel culture. Was critical of, the sort of alphabet agenda, as it were, to the extent that it is exploiting. See, I'm trying not to get off my point. In the trans agenda, he's been a person that has pushed back on sort of both sides of the sort of political spectrum. He's been an advocate for free speech. He has been actually a regular supporter of independent media because of the kind of personalities that he would bring to his show, which were not the usual, the usual sort of middle of the road, Republicans, Democrats, and whatnot. I mean, he brought a number of folks on there. And Tucker says frequently that he's more of a third party kind of guy. And so he's the only person, this is an interesting point that I heard made. He's the only person that has been critical of the major anchors on any of these programs, on any of these cable news. He's the only one that's been critical of the sort of war stuff that is breaking out right now, that's getting started. So that's an interesting point. So I said a bunch of stuff, but what are your thoughts about this? And then of course we're just kind of chatting it up right now. This is like breaking news, so this is the first time we've had a chance to talk about this. But of course we'll get to the main event in just a minute here. What do you think?
Now, I don't know what details have come out since. I just know that he has left Fox News. He probably was fired from Fox News. I know that Fox News lost their lawsuit against Dominion regarding the election fraud story. I know that there was legal discovery done in that whole proceedings, and they didn't lose the lawsuit. I'm sorry, they settled, right? So they chose to pay a hefty amount of money, and typically what that means is you have discovery problems, meaning that they found out things behind the scenes, looking through all the evidence, and we know about the text messages and all those other kinds of things. Some of that information was leaked out. So when you have those kinds of discovery problems, you go ahead and you pay such a hefty fine. I'm assuming that something in that process, again, I don't know the details. Maybe some of the detail has come out where it's like, oh, it had nothing to do with this. It was this other thing. But I'm assuming that it was something in that process that caused. I know that Tucker, with regards to some of the emails or the text messages that were released, was very opposed to the direction of, lying about the election stuff. Even though, yes, he did lie, like all of them lied. It's part of the business, right? I guess that's what they do. They're out there promoting a narrative, right? And it's commentary, it's editorial, it's not um, news per se. And it's kind of interesting if kind of watching the whole transition from news, and where you have standard news, and then you have like an editorial page, or what would be like these type of cable news shows, where it was separate still from the news. And because of the business model and getting eyeballs and all that kind of stuff, it now has become 100% commentary, 100% editorial. It's hard to tell the difference. But what I think is that something with Tucker Carlson, in the discovery process, rubbed somebody the wrong way, and they had to, maybe he said something, that made it obvious that Fox News was in the wrong, right? Maybe he was behind the scenes saying stuff like, we shouldn't be doing that, or this is wrong, or I'm because some things came out about him saying, he can't stand Trump, or stuff like that, blah blah blah. So I'm thinking he said something that led to discovery problems, that led to the big fine, and that led to him getting canned.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that very well may be the case. It's more of my read of this that we have an election coming, and he says a lot of things that are inconvenient for both sides, for the sort of what is the establishment, as it were. He says a lot of things that are sort of challenging for I'd say both political establishments. And I think that his, although they were trying to contextualize this as a him getting removed because of some sort of spiritual zealotry or something, which he apparently showcased at his last Heritage speech. But I watched that whole thing, and he's far more that way on his show, if you could even call it spiritual zealotry. He suggested that perhaps people pray for 10 minutes a day for the country because we're heading the wrong way, in the wrong direction. So apparently that alone was enough for Murdoch to say, okay, that's enough. I can't have it. And then on GMA, Good Morning America, they were sort of doing the same sort of hit type of stuff. They said nothing about the Dominion stuff. Matter of fact, there hasn't been really anything telling about the Dominion stuff associated with Tucker's firing. But what they're trying to say is that apparently in some text message exchange with a coworker, which is supposed to be private, apparently he said some crass or misogyny about about a female executive at the company. And then they proceeded to say that people at Fox, mind you, were criticizing him for some soft racism on his show. Now, I think that is hilarious that anyone from Fox News could fix their mouth to suggest that one of their talking heads is somehow racist, given the history of that organization, the suspect history, at least with respect to being racially insensitive. Okay, let's just put it that way. That seems like a page right out of the progressive playbook with respect to trying to cancel someone or trying to make up some kind of reason why, see, we're justified in getting rid of this guy. They even went on to say that because of Tucker's views, though he was number one and he got the best ratings, that his advertisers were not blue chip advertisers.
Mm-hmm.
And which first, I need to see some data on this, but I think that's hogwash. But even if it is true, that's still not. None of those things add up. And we know, and we know that a scandal will only emerge if the employer wants to get rid of you. If they don't want to get rid of you, you'll never hear about the scandal. They always knew about it, but you'll never hear. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is true. It must have something to do with money.
Right. So, I mean, now they're sort of caught up because they're going to have to pay the cat like $30 million. You know, if they bench him for the next, what is it? Where they're talking about 18 months or something. If they bench him, they're going to have to pay him. Now, I disagree with Tucker on a host of things. In particular, he has a sort of narrative and a sort of angle that seems to disproportionately target the way that he covers news associated with black community, black men in particular. He has a certain bias, and that's very apparent, and it's apparent in the way that he tends to read certain things. And he's a bootstrap bro. You know, he doesn't acknowledge any of the nuance associated with those issues. And so I have an issue with him with respect to that. But with respect to those other things, it's hard to find someone that has been as consistently sort of annoyed by authoritarianism and, because pundits on both sides will soft pedal that. They'll act like, well, he's kind of a despot, but it's kind of a soft despotism. It's all right. Don't worry about it. And plus look at what they did before, it's like that. But he tends to be pretty level in, hey, they're doing this. If we do this, then they're going to do worse in X, Y, and Z. So anyhow, they'll probably promote Sean Hannity to that spot. That'll probably be what they do in the interim. And if people were ticked off by Tucker Carlson, Hannity he doesn't say certain things that are critical of Republicans per se, but you want to talk about somebody that's an establishment opinion guy. He's right down the middle of Republican all day long, right down the middle. He'll act like he's critical of certain things, but it's really pretty much straight down the middle. So anyhow, all right, let's go ahead and jump through this next. Let's get over here. So this is a video. Nipsey Hussle is sharing his keys to success, his 10 keys to success. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's see what he has to say.
I was always a hustler. So when I talk to a young dude, I'm like, bro, my advice to you is going to be money advice. I don't going to get philosophical, religious advice. Bro, get you some money, you're going to feel different.
Straight up.
You might even, all that other advice I could have gave you, this is the short version. Get you a couple dollars, man. You're going to feel different. We look at life like it's about what you can get from life. And I think, I read something, I was like, that's not what it is. You're going to always be unfulfilled if you look at life like that. It's about knowing you're going to leave one day. And, when you leave, the only way you're going to be fulfilled is if you gave everything you had.
Really, though.
And you emptied yourself here. And you left it all here because it's temporary and you got a moment,
Right.
So I think that for me, it's like, I got kids, I got a daughter and a son.
Right.
So, you got to factor in your kids. You can't just all the way commit yourself to your cause.
Right.
You gotta make sure that you're there for your kids. But outside of that, I want to be in this thing until I'm out of energy, till I don't have nothing left to contribute.
Right.
Yeah, and it might not always just be making music and being in front of the mic, but just a part of hip hop culture and just a part of what this thing has become. When you really feel like you got.
So what do you think of this? You know, leave it on the court, leave it all on the court, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first of all, though, what he said about the short version advice type stuff, get money up and a lot of things will be better. I think that that's a thing that gets short shrift in a lot of, let's just say, in this culture, right? In American culture, where people don't like talking about money. You're not supposed to say what you earn. It's considered gauche or uncouth, and we don't want to talk about the positive aspect of money. But if we just talk about the negative aspect of money in the sense of the absence of money now, in that sense of positive and negative, we know that all kinds of problems, okay, riots in the streets, divorces, suicides, wars, it's about money. So you have this thing that's killing people and doing all kinds of crap, making our lives miserable, but we're not supposed to say anything about it because it doesn't. So I like that aspect. First of all, that you're like, hey, yeah, get your money up. And I'm not even talking about the process of getting your money up, in which and the refinement that happens therein or thereby. But just the fact, just get that money, okay? And the thing, there's a qualitative shift that happens. I think it's something that people just don't like to talk about for reasons that are obvious or whatever. But on the level of leaving it all on the court, giving it your all, definitely 100%. That I like that. That's the first key, and it is all a battle against yourself for the most part. That's the way I like to look at it, anyways. In the sense that it's not a lot that's really stopping you. Oh, I'm gonna go start this business. I'm gonna go hustle. Go get this particular skill. I'm gonna get this additional degree. I'm gonna go apply for this other job and this other thing, right? Especially in the West, right, where most people are listening to us from right now. There's not a lot of stuff stopping you. Okay, you can go to the community college. You can go get that job application. You can go door to door and knock on doors and whatever you got. All that stuff you're free to do that. The main obstacle is yourself. Yeah, so those are my initial thoughts about it.
Yes. Yeah, it kind of smacks of work hard. Be willing to do what other people are not willing to do, that kind of thing. Um, Eliminate the excuses, quit talking about it, be about it. All that kind of thing. And I like that. And I've frequently said, I do acknowledge that there are obstacles, and you have to acknowledge the obstacles in order to strategize how to navigate around the obstacles. So you don't have to ignore the obstacles. You can acknowledge the obstacles, but that doesn't let you off the hook. Mm-hmm. You are still the person that has to ultimately, get it done. And you can make excuses. You can, you can point at the rain. You can comment about the weather. The weather made it so that you couldn't do it. This made it so you could do it. All you can say all that stuff. But ultimately, doing that without actually moving forward. Now, look, I can say, look, it's raining, but then guess what? I have a tool to deal with that. It's called an umbrella. So I grab my umbrella and get going. All right. And plus, human beings are waterproof as far as I know. We're not like witches where water like destroys us or something. I don't know. Let's see here.
What this thing has become.
When you really feel like you got something in you, right? That's of value. It hurt more to just not address it than to fail trying. If you know what I mean by that? Right. Like if you just got a hunch that now I can really do this. I think I'm good enough to do this, and you don't pursue it. That's more of a strain and a torture than to pursue it and not get the results you want. Because at least you went after it and you tried it. You know what I'm saying?
None.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, we hear about the regrets, the regrets being the regrets of things that you don't do and all that. Yeah, I saw a clip recently of Kanye talking about his belief in himself, and this is something that seems to be in short supply, right? That's why there's a lot of self-help books out there, a lot of motivational speakers out there and stuff like that, trying to get you to get up and do certain things. Another thing that comes to mind, and the reason I mentioned that is because it's not very easy, right? Just give it a shot, give it a shot. There's something that seems to block people that maybe someone like Nipsey Hussle or someone like Kanye. Well, Kanye knows quite clearly when he speaks, he says things like, I believe in myself and I see that this is the thing that's blocking most people, right? But sometimes when people say give it a shot, they don't necessarily understand, again, the internal blocks that people have, that is making them not give it a shot. There was a particular piece of advice that, years and years ago, I think I was still in college or something. There was this engineer, business owner that said, I think the question was, how do you know the right time or when you're ready to start your business? And he said something well, when you are ready to address all the problems that come in. And I interpreted that answer the same way most people interpreted it, which is that, oh, you have to be ready. And I thought there was something wrong with it, because he's saying you have to be ready in terms of your skill, your ability, your know-how, your knowledge, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, then that'll never happen. How can you be ready to address all the things that come up? That means, so I thought there was something wrong with what he was saying. But I think now, looking back, that that's not what he meant by being ready. He simply meant mentally ready, psychologically ready, right? If you feel like you're ready for the buck to stop with you, right? Because obviously you're never going to be ready with all the answers, right? Yep. That's what immediate thing that struck me was, of course, you're never going to be ready with all the answers. That means you never start your business, right? But what he was saying is, when you're mentally ready to take the responsibility, when you're ready for things to go wrong and the client to call you about this and you to make a mistake over there and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff, that's when you start. But most people, including myself, thought it was be ready. Now, luckily, I was like, well, but that's BS, so he must be saying something cryptic or whatever, right? How can you be ready? But then, a little later, I realized that no, it's just be ready to take all of that. So if I had to just put a little bow around what I'm saying, is that this notion of giving it a shot is something that you have to practice by starting small, right? Same thing with, I think, part one, the first thing too, in terms of leaving it all out there on the court. You have to start small with little things, okay? I know you don't like momentum, Dr. Thunder, okay? But there are many kind of analogies with, like, the domino, right? You have this small domino, and next thing you know, you're pushing down a big block, that is as tall as a building but you started out with this small thing. So these habits do form, and compounding is a real thing. Compounding and exponential growth, as exemplified by that domino and many other kinds of things, that you're going to end up being so far ahead. If you're measuring yourself, you're not really going to know. But when you compare yourself, if you're able to compare yourself, or if you ever have the opportunity to see yourself through other people's eyes, when you've already practiced this taking it, giving it a shot, getting up and doing that thing, as you mentioned, that other people will not do. When you look at yourself, or if you're able to look at yourself through someone else's eyes, a year, 5 years down the line, you're light years ahead. You wouldn't know, because you're out here facing your particular obstacle for this day. But as a word of encouragement, it's little things on a day by day build these kind of big habits. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, if you call it momentum, or if you call it endurance, like developing endurance or developing strength, it's still perhaps the effect of it is still the same. And that is that you have the ability to through your effort accomplish more. Like you can do more with whatever effort you're putting forth. You're expanding the output as it were, with seemingly the same amount of effort. Okay, so I'll give it that, right? Um, you were saying I was thinking a little bit ago. You were talking about this sort of willingness, the willingness to take on the responsibility, the willingness to accept the consequences. It's like the willingness to accept the consequences, the pluses and the minuses, the willingness to take it on yourself and not to blame anyone else, blame any circumstances, blame any, not, the willingness to, hey, the reason that this happened is because of me. I have to fix this. I'm the only person that can fix this. The willingness to take on all of that seems to be what that advice meant. Is like you're saying, and it is the case. I mean, it seems like there's not as many folks that are willing to do that. Like, if you start your own business or, let's do the business thing. You start your own business. It's like a lot of people think that they're still supposed to be able to complain to you and whine to you about how hard it is and about how nobody else is helping them. And it's like, dude, it's your business. I mean, who's supposed to be helping you? No, that's, hey, look, and you're at the beginning of this. No, nobody's going to help you. It's going to just be you. And even if you can find somebody or some people to, I don't know, assist with some, I don't know, labor or whatever, if they don't do it right and it affects the business, who does it fall on? It's not them. It's you. So you don't, I don't know. I don't think that people understand that part of it. I think it's just this like, hey, well, I have my own business, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm like this. It's like it has like a certain cachet, but they don't realize that what you're saying is you can complain if you want to, but nobody's going to hear it because you called it your business. You're not working for someone else. You're working for yourself. So who else is supposed to be these people helping you? I have to do it myself. Yeah, everybody has to do it themselves. That's why so few people are successful at it. There's a lot of failing along the way. It's because you have to do it yourself. That's how that works.
So I have a question for you there on that, but just a quick comment on what you said. Yes, it is rare, right, that people actually are willing to take responsibility, right? And rareness is what kind of gives value, right, in economic value now, in terms of economic value. So, and the entrepreneur aspect of things is one of the least understood factors of production, right? People understand labor. They're like, okay, well, I put in labor and it comes out, but why does the business owner get what he gets, right? We're like, oh, but the worker, he does all the work, and then the business owner, right? Because they don't understand this the rareness of somebody taking the responsibility. It's like, okay, like that is the value, okay, and it is needed. Somebody's neck needs to be on a chopping block, right?
Yep.
Somebody's unless we become the Borg, perfectly communistic, undifferentiated mass of human beings, we still want somebody's neck on the chopping block. Somebody's signature on that loan paper, whatever it is. Someone has to take on that responsibility. Just wanted to emphasize that aspect there. Another, what I wanted to ask you is, so there are different people that will be out there, and some things are stopping them from, shall we say, taking on this responsibility. And if we stick with the business aspect, what would you say to somebody who has a particular fear? Like, I've heard this one before, where they said, they don't want other people to be dependent on them, right? Or it's not like they don't want, they're afraid of that responsibility. So now you have employees, let's say, right? And now they're dependent on you. That's scary for them. That was their particular kind of fear. What would you say to that kind of person or that particular fear? How would you address that? They don't want to let this person down. They don't want to have to uh, lay somebody off. They don't want to have to, maybe they screw something up and then the business starts sliding downhill, and then these people are not able to pay their mortgage, or whatever it is. How would you address that concern?
Man, that's a really tough one. You know, I guess I think of myself as I'm providing an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see what it is that I do. So, I have my own band. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And I see myself as facilitating opportunities for other people. That's how I see myself. And so I'm not really afraid per se. I'm more like seeing it as a service that I'm providing. So if it is what it is that I'm asking people to do is worthwhile, is something that they are going to feel fulfilled as they're doing it, nothing is permanent, nothing lasts forever. So as you're doing it, and that goes back to the whole, to the whole, being in the moment, because, I have, I try to plan. I am an intuitive, so things will occur to me as I'm doing them. But I try to be, in the moment, thinking about what it is that I'm doing. Am I getting enjoyment out of what I'm doing? And enjoyment, not meaning that I like every second of it and that is not effort associated with it, but that, you're working with people that you like, you're doing something that you actually have an affinity for, you're making progress, you're not sitting in the same spot, but you're actually can see things moving. And I think that the experience that people have working for someone that's like that, or working with somebody that's like that, I think it's worth it. I would much rather do that and not be sure about what the future holds than know for sure that something is going to happen and just be doing some stuff that I just can't stand this. So it's a trade-off. There's a risk associated with being able to do something that you love, really. But, you have to, it's tricky because, I'm not a fan of trying to convince people that they should hope against hope, and they've seen no signs in their life that they should make a particular decision for a certain kind of career path. They have no aptitude in that area. They're not, they've had no success in that. No one of significance has ever said, hey, you got something. None of that stuff has happened, but they just keep hoping against hope. And, it's like I don't know, like a 5'2" guy thinking that he's going to play in the NBA. Of course, Muggsy Bogues did play in the NBA, but he was 5'3" though, so that inch makes a big difference, apparently. So it's just, so I guess that's the way I think about that, and that's a sort of a roundabout way to sort of answer this question. I would be trying to tell the person, look, if you're actually doing something that's meaningful and people are wanting to spend their time doing the stuff that you're asking, I think that's all you need to be concerned about. I mean, because nobody can control what happens. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be wildly successful, if it's going to flop. But if everybody's enjoying what they're doing, if they're in the moment, I can think back on, I've had a number of, situations, jobs, gigs, maybe gigs that I thought were going to turn into something else and they never did. But I still have fond memories of them because I was still doing something that I loved.
Yeah.
I still was spending time with people that I dug, and I was becoming better. I was improving at what it is that I do. And so even if stuff doesn't wind up the way that you think it will, or that you hope it will, it's still, it's still good. So I don't know.
I like how you started this by saying that you're providing a service, because it is okay. So the overarching theme here is, that you should not be worried so much because everything is impermanent. And if this particular aspect of impermanence is worrying you so much, maybe you need to take a step back and take a nice spiritual overview of how you're examining life anyways, because none of us are getting out of here alive. Okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing is permanent. That's the overarching aspect. But on the level of providing a service, I think that is something that this person, again, whom is saying that they're worried about taking on the responsibility of being responsible for someone else's paycheck, right? What they don't understand is at every level of the game, there let's talk about rungs of the ladder into the labor force, let's say, because you're talking about some jobs that you've had perhaps earlier on in your career and such, right? Or let's talk about, being a fast food person, or whatever it may be. That first rung of the ladder needs to be there. I remember my first our engineering internship job at KCG Engineering at Laguna Hills, Orange County, California, right? I was there for a while and I got laid off. Was it permanent? No. It was a rather small outfit, right? I mean, the guy was doing well for himself and all that kind of stuff, but it was a small outfit, and I was there as a college intern, and I have many fond, well, I was going to say fond memories, but that's not really, I would be lying if I put it that way. What I mean is it was a place where I learned a lot. And by the way, in case the person is, I don't mean I don't have fond memories. I just mean that that's not the way I talk. I don't talk about having fond memories and stuff, right? It was a valuable, I learned many valuable lessons in that place, right? So even though it was just temporary, that level of somebody coming in and being an intern is needed in the economy. It's not like, oh, well, if I start a business, then it has to be Coca-Cola tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm afraid. It's like, no, every level is required, right? So the person that you're able to give a job for 6 months, and then, or maybe in month 7, now they have to be part-time or whatever, that's a great service that's required, right? And by the way, most of Americans work for small businesses. I know when you think about it, obviously it makes sense, right? Not everybody's working for Google, right? The vast majority of people work for small businesses, right? So don't be afraid to go out there and start your own thing. Be responsible for someone else. They will learn from you if they're the right type of person. And if they also are the right type of person and you happen to be lucky, they will, that partnership might be the reason why the thing grows and is successful. It was a comment that somebody made, a few years back that kind of stuck with me. It was not the kind of, that would not have been my particular fear of, like being responsible for other people. But I just wanted to put that out there because it seems like the kind of fear that many people might have. So they have the skill, let's say, and they're like, okay, do I go the employee route full time, or do I try to start something of my own? But if I start something of my own, now I got to take on all this burden and all this stuff. And what if it falls apart? Blah, blah, blah. But anyways, I just wanted to ask, but I think your answer was pretty good.
Yeah. And the thing is if it's really crippling like that, then yeah, maybe you should just stay being an employee, because, and I don't say that to like crush somebody's dreams or to be like kind of glib or whatever. But hey, if it's really that big a deal. If you're really struggling like that, then, you better keep your day job, as they go. All right, let's keep going. Okay, he's going to talk about hard work now. Let's see here. Let me. I can hear.
You tried it, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to say about giving it a shot. What is it? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. There's that kind of thing. But you also may miss a lot of the shots that you take. So the thing is that the point is that there's no guarantee. You could shoot 100 shots and you could miss them all. Right? Now, you probably won't miss them all, but you could. But if you don't shoot anything, then you already know what the outcome is. And part of that has to do with that whole that philosophy that I've talked about on our show before, the power of yes. Because if you say yes, there's always a possibility, but if you say no, then you already know what you have. And it's nothing new. It's the same thing that you already had. And so taking a shot at least possibly facilitates something new, something different than what you already have. Potentially something better.
Yeah, and for certain type of logical people out there, of which I am not one. It's a long story. I said something that I'll have to unpack, but I'm not going to unpack it. But there's some people who kind of think in this kind of a logical way of, let me look at my future this way and look at this that way. Well, how about these chances over here? They're almost like a certain kind of gambler that is very illogical gambler, if you will. I'm more of just a throw it, just risk it all. That's what I mean by that. For that type of person who is making this type of calculation, they're more calculated. Compare your two future selves. One that, let's say worst case scenario, you took those 100 shots and you missed them all, okay? And now you're in the future. Or you took 0 shots, right? And now you're in that same future, right? In which future are you more settled? Yeah. I would argue the one where you took the 100 shots, because you're not worried. You already know what happened, right? You're like, in the one where you didn't take any shots, you're like, this wonder and all, if this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, it's always better to have taken the shots if you're making this kind of calculation, okay?
100%.
So even though it's a weird kind of calculation to make, but anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like that. That whole regret thing, like you're only going to regret what you didn't do. You're not going to regret what you failed at. I mean, that seems to be the thing. So, and failure teaches you something. You don't learn anything from not even trying. So you lost by not taking a shot. You lose. You already lose. You didn't even try. So let's keep going.
Nothing beat hard work. Nothing beat willpower. When you determined, when you got your mind on something and you serious about it and you working toward it. So that would be my only advice to anybody. Just
real talk.
Yeah, raise your level with it. Take it to that level.
There's the obligatory work hard. Now I'm going to ask you something. Now, this was years ago. Former colleague of mine, he told me something. He said, let's see, what was it he said? He says, a lot of people will tell you to work hard, but not many people will tell you to work smart. Now, within the context of the person that's working smart is also working hard, by the way. Right? Because as that illustration that I like to use about sandpaper, that it would be dumb. I could work hard and I could try to sand the table with my bare hand, Or I could say, well, sandpaper is, of course, going to be a lot more effective than me trying to do it with my bare hand. So then, okay, let me use sandpaper. But then there's still effort that I have to put forth to get the sandpaper to work.
Mhm.
So one of them just seems to be just like brute force in his like caveman approach or something, like not much up there or something. But at least you're putting effort forth. The other one is actually taking that effort and multiplying it by being smart about it. So,
Mhm.
so first of all, do you think that what it was that this former colleague of mine told me is actually true? That a lot of people will tell you to work hard, but not many people will tell you to work smart. And then if you could like kind of unpack, I said some things.
Mhm.
You got plenty of meat on the bone there.
So now the question seems to be one of those empirical questions where it's like, okay, it seems like you go take a poll and you find out, or before I comment on the theme, whether more people tell you or not, it's not something that I actually do know, but I do suspect that yes, most actually I think it's the opposite. I think a lot of times people are actually telling you how to be effective and efficient and stuff like that, and the hard work, just work hard stuff is kind of trite and cliche. But then again, that's why I'm saying it's an empirical question, meaning that you have to go out there and actually do a sample thing. Because what I'm saying is just basically based on whom I listen to, right? Whom I hear. But the people whom I hear and what I'm listening to tends to be more on the how to be effective, how to be efficient stuff. But yes, the dichotomy between working hard and working smart, I think, is definitely a false one. Like, or like like Elon Musk is not working smart, or like Elon Musk is not working hard, or you get what I'm saying? It's like, of course he's working hard AF, and he's being smart about it sometimes, right? And all that kind of stuff. He's being effective. You're being efficient. You're learning. You're planning. You're improving, and all those other kinds of things. Okay, this the dichotomy between working hard and working smart, I just don't get it. You're either effective or you're ineffective, as you put it. You're efficient or you're inefficient, right? It's not about hard or not hard. Um, then what you said, the obligatory work hard thing. Uh, I think it is something that now Elon Musk comes to mind because he's one of those guys that people talk about. He's an example of those 14-hour a day type people, right? And you know a lot of people don't understand how that's possible. You probably understand it, right? And it's probably not a very strange concept to you, like in terms of, well, yeah, if you're awake, you're working. If you're awake, you're working. Like that's what else are you doing, right? If you're awake, you're working, right?
Yeah.
And yes, don't you can still, as I think Nipsey mentioned earlier when he was talking about leaving it all on the table, you can still have time for your family and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's another little thing that people want to sneak in, like it's some kind of another kind of a dichotomy. But I think that people don't really understand that kind of flow because, again, they have many internal blocks about what work is. Because when someone like Elon says he's working 14 hours a day, and I'm saying, oh, if you're awake, you're working. Um, what we're saying is we don't even know what the difference between being working and being awake is. It's like, I don't
Yeah,
understand what the difference is.
yeah. I got to say something here too. Especially um the so-called spiritual folks, the Christians, the whatever. Um, you know, there's a particular mandate on the life of a man, and it's established early in the Bible. Actually, it's established in the book of Genesis, right at the beginning. Right? This idea of if you don't work, you don't eat. This sort of working the land with the hands and the sweat from the brow, this is the cost. This is the toll. This is the price to pay. It's a biblical principle. This idea that you're supposed to be lounging around, that you're supposed to set things up so that you can discontinue effort. Look, part of what is your salvation is your work, is your effort. And so this whole this whole treating it as some sort of trivial thing. It's not trivial. It's central. And to the extent that you're not doing anything and that you think that your life is supposed to be about planning your vacation, like I'm doing all this stuff so that I can relax on a vacation. I don't even show me chapter and verse on that. I don't see that anymore. I'm not saying that you can't go on a vacation. I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend time with your family. I'm not saying that you need to be wise about, so you're not working yourself to an early grave. Okay, yes, I can acknowledge all that stuff. But a lot of that stuff even is about what you're eating and if you're in physical, in good condition. So we're designed to work. We're supposed to work. That's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to get up in the morning. Everything that you're doing is supposed to be towards a particular objective. What else? What else is there? In matter of fact, it's interesting because even on the so-called day of rest, we participate. We are mandated. Christianity mandates us to participate in regular gatherings. And what are those gatherings comprised of? Liturgy. What does liturgy mean? It means the work of the people. So all I'm saying, what? If you've gone to like an Orthodox church, or some of the like Eastern Catholic churches, or some of the like really traditional Catholic churches, there's like no pews in the church, right? Because in the expectation is you walk in here and you're intended to stand for 3 or 4 hours, because this is to be work. It's supposed to be effort. This is supposed to be there's skin in the game. There's effort. There's toil. Okay, and that's supposedly on the day of rest. So all I'm saying is we're supposed to work. And having a day of rest, what does that imply about the other 6 days? Get it happening.
Saw a meme the other day about, working all the time just to get 48 hours of, of freedom. They called it freedom, is not the way to be, and there's a lot wrong with modern society, of a certain kind of modern society, right? Where people are there's a lack of balance, right? To use that term, and people blame this lack of balance in all the wrong places. Like, oh, it's my office, that's why, or it's this, or it's that thing, blah blah blah. You mentioned things about, like, let's say health, your hydration and your exercise and what you're eating and what you're feeding your mind, okay, and how you are able to how you're actually treating yourself internally, right? How you are, the kind of responsibility and accountability you're taking versus your lack of accountability and responsibility, which is just leading you, which is mental havoc and psychological damage and all that kind of stuff. The fact that they're not doing all these things, they think that the solution, or all these things, all the symptoms that result from them not doing these things, okay, are because that they're working in a cubicle somewhere. that only if they just had this freedom that they were looking for, that everything will be perfect. But anyways, the point is, for let's say the Elon Musk, or like I was saying, what's the difference between being awake and working? They, this is where the happiness comes from. I think you would call it, uh, is it joy? I think you use
Joy,
for it,
yeah, joy
because it's not. Yeah.
or enjoyment, enjoyment.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not obviously supposed. It's work. It's sometimes you're like you feel like you're off. You're tired. Things are not going right, and all these other kinds of things. But you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the different the waves, the seasons, the tides. Your rhythms, and all these other kinds of things. There's a lot of wisdom and a lot of enjoyment of life, really digging the life that comes from engaging in it. The wanting to do a vacation, okay, the wanting to turn off, okay. And if I put it in stark terms, it'll be like, okay, you wake up and you have something that you have to do, but you rather go eat an apple pie and drink a beer, which basically numbs you, and you're basically robbing yourself of the joy that you would have had if you
mm,
actually did go out that day and mowed the lawn, sweated, and maybe
let
at noon there was this particular time at noon where you felt like, man, I don't think I can make it. But then you went through and then you drank that cup of water, and that was like the best cup of water you've had. And then later on that night when you're tired and you lay down, what a much better day it was than the day when you decided to have that ice cream and drink beer.
oh good,
We all know the difference. That day, that other day is a
yeah,
rotten day. That's crap. That's you, bad physically, bad mentally, bad spiritually, just horrible, And that's what
right.
people think that life is. They want to
Let,
go numb themselves in Cancun or something. It's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. I had to go ahead and do that, man. Goodness gracious. That's what it is. Um, goodness. I just that whole enjoyment thing, something that I say is happiness is what is it? It is flimsy. It's trivial. It's sometimes you have it, sometimes it's based on what happens, right? Events in your life affect your mood. It's happiness is like a mood or something. But enjoyment, and this is what I think what you actually meant when you said happiness. But enjoyment is something deeper, right? So it's this thing where um yeah, you're still struggling, you still have challenges, you're sweating, your back hurts, you're having some unexpected challenges, you're taking a risk, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's around the corner, there's some stress associated with what you're doing, but you have like this peace, a sense of like meaning, and like this like there's a brightness, uh, in the in the early church, in the Orthodox Church, uh, we talk about a you could have a, let's see, what is this? It's um, like a bright sadness, right? A bright sadness, and what a bright sadness is you're aware of. I mean, you feel what's happening. You know what's happening. You can't affect everything. You can't fix everything, right? But there's still like this. There's this light that you can sense this light, and this light is drawing you in a particular direction. And if you can imagine if there was no light, but you still had to do all the same stuff, that's just like, now that would really be That'd be horrible. So I think part of this, like, figuring out what it is that you're meant to do is like so important. Figure it out as soon as possible, and then invest everything you have in it. Go all in. Work hard, work smart, learn from people, do all the stuff. Because it's always going to end up being worth it. And since we were designed to work, there's a certain kind of fulfillment that you're not going to get from sitting on the couch eating Krispy Kremes. It's just not. You're just not going to get it. You feel good for a split second, and then it's done.
100%. And you've definitely robbed yourself of that whole experience, the arc that you would have had. I want to say something a little bit adjacent here.
Sure.
I was listening to shout out to Mike V, Black Brain Trust, talking about the tech industry and venture capital, and there was a racial aspect to it, as there often tends to be with Mike V, in terms of like, oh,
Yep.
The white men are not giving. They're not funding black entrepreneurs or something like that. I now maybe this is about the lenses that you have on and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so my lens, famously, and let me not just make it my lens. Typically, the non-American lens doesn't look at things that way. Just for the Americans listening out there, okay, I'm American too, but non-Americans don't look at things that way. You're not out there thinking that, the white man didn't give me the funds. It's like, I'm not there in that room. That is a fact that doesn't seem to be mentioned, because when I listen to, shout out to K Business Podcast, he talks about these places he goes to, and he's the only black person there, right? For these government contracts and this and that. So how is it the case that people are saying, well, they're not giving, there's discrimination here, there's discrimination there, but dude, you're not there. You didn't grind. So I say that because when you were just saying the grind and you go out there and you do all that kind of stuff, you will find doors,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
Doors will open up for you if you do those things. And of course, I'm not doing, as you say, bootstrap bro stuff. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, I'm not saying that you cannot then take a wide view of all the systemic situations and look statistically in terms of things and all that kind of stuff. But this conversation that was going on in the Black Brain Trust regarding venture capital made me think. I was like, but the thing I always talk about is like, but you're not taking this. You're not in the STEM courses. Why are you talking about starting? It's like, where are these white?
Yeah.
He said, he had this. There were 1,000 black guys in this room, and the venture capitalists didn't give him money. It's like, I didn't see the 1,000 guys in the STEM classes. So but I just have to say that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And you cannot see. You're still on the hook. You can acknowledge issues. You can acknowledge systemic issues. And in my mind, my acknowledging these systemic issues is in no way to give me an excuse for not succeeding. Okay, so that's a big point to make. That's not why I have those discussions. I have those discussions because I want to see, in general, these policies change so that others after me potentially would have less challenge getting to a certain stage. That's a different thing. That's about creating a better future. I want my son to have a better, an easier time dealing with certain things than I did. Not because I think that him putting forth a lot of effort is not good for him, but how much more could that effort accomplish? If he has to put out the same amount of effort, how much more can he accomplish? It's more of that sort of calculus. But I do think that is a point that gets lost. And I think that one of the reasons that bootstrap bros exist is because, at least from their perspective, there seems to be basically a lot of complaining with no effort. It's like complaining so that they don't have to work. Now, I'm not an advocate for that foolishness. You should be working. You can identify issues with the system in an attempt to improve it for people that are coming after you. But you need to be willing to take on the system for what it is now, and you can't really make excuses about what it is now. You know what the game is. Now get in there and play the game. You know, so that's more of my disposition, and I understand how it can be hard for people on the outside looking in on some of these discussions to understand the nuance, the difference between those, those characters, but yeah, that's important. I think that's a really good point you made. Kaisorian Empire, thank you very much. It says, I want to grow so he can grift FBA engineering contracts.
Hey,
man, it's all a grift, man.
Wherever I can get it.
Hey, yeah, I just did a video called "Academia is a Grift." It's all. I mean, it's interesting because the grift thing, which is seems to be like a trending topic right now in the sort of space. The grift topic is the grift. The concept of grift is interesting because really grift is a human beings are prone to grifting. It's like a usual it's a usual sort of outgrowth. It's something that human beings tend to do, right? They tend to exploit other human beings. Grift is kind of like, it's kind of like the pyramid, right? So the guy at the top of the pyramid, he's trying to get the people lower down on the pyramid to do more work, right? Do more effort. And so that always is there. That's always going to be there. My use of it is basically just to say, look, identifying stuff as a grift, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't look that you have not taken away your own responsibility to engage by acknowledging basic human behavior. So you still have to engage. You still have to get in, and pointing at Krispy Kreme dude on the couch saying, hey man, I'm just sitting here because, man, life is BS, man. It's all a grift, man. It's all bogus. Yeah, right. It's humanity. It's like freaking, for all have sinned and fallen short. Look, we're in a constant state of decay, entropy, everything. It's all spiraling out of control. Look, we already know that that's the case. But that doesn't excuse you. It doesn't excuse you from doing what you're supposed to do.
100%. And shout out to Kaizo for the super chat. I was actually having a conversation with him about the heroic figures, especially in contemporary times, right?
Yes.
Heroes that are of more of a Nietzschean mold, mainly, or shout out to Ayn Rand, the John Galt type stuff, because that is the kind of ethos that we're kind of pointing to. That thing where life is worthwhile because of the struggle, because of the grandeur of the struggle, because of the and all that kind of stuff. And by struggle, I don't really necessarily mean struggle. I mean the work, right? Because struggle kind of demeans it. Makes you're burning under something. It's like, no, the work, the climbing up, right? That kind of ethos, it seems like it's I would just like, and this is just a simple statement, I would like to see a lot more of that. seems like there's not a lot of that going on. We were talking about popular culture and how it's kind of missing in popular culture, where you can't have a great man doing great things. No, no, no. That's you gotta cut him down to size, or he's got to be a tragic hero of some kind. He's got to be like a Tony Soprano or Walter White. Is it? It's always a little twist, something like that, some tragic flaw or whatever it may be, right? There is no great man doing great things and achieving greatness in the world, or just the idea of greatness in order to inspire the people. And one last point on that, my general approach is, look, there was one sun, right? I don't believe in all these different tiers of suns, right? That's the sun, S-U-N, in the sky. What do I mean by that? I mean that there is a general attitude that would say, well, okay, well, there's a highest sun, high kind of aspiration or a high model, let's say a model, right? And that's what I'm talking about right now, for those high level people whom can look at that. But then you kind of dim it down a little bit for all these other levels of people. Like, I think that's BS. I'm like, no, everybody, whether or not they can actually ever aspire to the sun height, or even if they don't necessarily even have to understand the sun's rays, they can feel the heat. And if you display the sun culturally through your art, through your music, through your proclamations, through your ideals and your models, then everybody benefits. As opposed to, not everybody can do that, so let's have this level of Special Olympics and this other level of Special Olympics and that other level of oppression Olympics and all these other kinds of, you get what I'm saying, right? I just find that to be kind of like weirdly disjointed in a certain kind of way. It's like, no, there's typically, the ancient way was one pinnacle, one monarch all the way up there. And and celebrations also used to be that way, where it's a festival and it's grand and everybody participates. Not everybody can appreciate, the peasants might not be able to appreciate the grandeur of what's going on at all the highest levels, but everybody is doing one, not, these people over here go do their own special little thing, and then we have this other sub festivals for other sub people, if I'm making sense, right? But
yep,
yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to say that.
All right. Yes. Let's do this one here. Thoughts are powerful. What I'd like to do is get through number 5, and then I think we can do 6 through 10 next week on your channel.
Okay.
I think, thoughts is powerful in all facets. Because even my career, even my life, things end up turning out exactly how I visualized them. Not in this time frame I expected. You know what I'm saying? You always want it to happen overnight. Mm-hmm. But, I just had clear visions. Obviously outside of my grill, I just mean in music and hustling and just how I viewed myself as an adult when I was a young dude coming up. And your thoughts powerful. Come to life if you stick to your script. Man.
Hey, man.
You know what I'm saying, honey? If I don't live by my rules.
All right. So the whole thoughts are powerful. So there's something in there's something in the Bible about what is it, the power of the tongue, right? Mm-hmm. And tongue being an unwieldy rudder, but one aspect of this, and Kaizo just joined, one aspect of this is you don't say anything without a thought, right? And so you could say, okay, so then thoughts are the sort of prerequisite to speech. And there's a sort of mystical, see, but I'm going to tell you, part of the reason that I don't like this manifesting talk that has become sort of popularized, and stuff like The Secret and all that kind of stuff, is because it trivializes what's actually at work, what actually is happening, and it makes it seem as though there's some sort of trick that you need, right? And no, it's not a trick. We were actually designed to function this way. You don't need any special extra power to access what you already have. Right? And so I don't like this sort of, let's make it extra mystical, because what that does is it overlooks the, as it were, the common miracle. Right? It makes you overlook those things. So this whole, the way that this works is you conceive something, and God designed mankind to be the only ones that had his sort of creativity, his ability to envision something and then to go make it out in the world, to go create it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're the only ones that have that. And often you'll see, you'll be watching like National Geographic or something, and they'll be doing like a story about dolphins or something, right? It's like, well, dolphins are actually smarter than human beings and like this. And I'm not sure exactly what the metric that they're using is, but there's an ability for them to see under the water that expresses a different level of capacity. But something that they don't possess is the ability to envision something and then to actually create it in the real world. They don't have no other animal has that. Even monkeys that share 98% of our genetic code or whatever it is, they don't have that. That's what makes mankind different, is what he's talking about right here, is this thoughts are powerful, because you can take a thought, an idea, and you can actually make that idea a reality, right? And so the reason I don't like the manifesting talk, the secret, and all that kind of stuff is, like I said, it's trying to trivialize. It is trivializing the what is actually common. You don't need this book. You don't need that thing. You don't need any of that. You just need to get yourself to work, think of something, and then take risks and just try. And the more you do that, the more it's going to work out. What do you think about that? And then, Kaizo, I want you to add.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. There's a lot there when you open up the manifesting and you're talking about the power of thinking. And there's an aspect which has to do with self-esteem. That is the aspect that rubs me the wrong way. In other words, rather than what you were saying, which is, okay, the ability to conceive of, the ability to push forward through imagination, see the different pitfalls, try out. Shout out to Jordan Peterson, talking about, projecting yourself into different kind of mental experiments so that your thoughts can die as opposed to you dying, right? You're like, oh, well, I guess that's not a good idea. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then pick a path, and obviously pivoting and course correcting as you go along. That is the real thing. But people like to hear the thoughts are powerful for self-esteem reasons, which is they're trying to fill a hole. There's something wrong there. Okay. You don't hear healthy people, healthy cultures, I should just say, right? Talking about self-esteem, right? Something has gone wrong. And typically it's another manifestation of this. There's a certain kind of disaggregation that happens in modern society where the kinds of things that otherwise will make you whole have been broken up into many different aspects, such as you go over there for your therapy. You go over here and you get vitamins. You go over here and you do your vacation, right? That's that part. And it's like all these things are just kind of, you go over there to this self-help group and you say these things, and you go over here and you chant this stuff, and it's like, but meanwhile, for the most part, you're completely, it's like you've just exploded all over the place. And obviously not most people can go out there and pick up those pieces and go for the Pilates and the yoga and get the blah, blah, blah and try to make themselves whole again. But this whole self-esteem talk is an aspect of that thing which has gotten blown out. It's got externalized for some weird reason. But definitely, I agree with you. This positive thinking thing, I'll say this, and I'll let Kaizo kind of go ahead. It's Let me speak from my personal point of view. Okay, it's akin to what I said earlier about that belief in yourself that for some reason is rare, and people don't. If you don't have this belief in yourself, my belief is if you don't have that then it should be goal number one is to find out what's wrong there, what's happening. Okay, like, and let me try to explain what I mean by belief in yourself. I don't mean some kind of chest beating. I'm the. That's lame. To be honest with you, I mean where there's just it's not even a question whether or not you belong here on Earth. Let me say that again. It is not about pounding your chest and saying I believe myself or I'm the man. It's like no. It's not even a question. You don't have to say it, but you know that you belong here. You're at home here in your skin, in this mortal coil with the things that are happening. You're comfortable here. You don't feel like you're a guest and someone is watching your show. Someone needs to kick you out, or you don't belong, right? You don't feel like you're in some stranger's house, which is the state of most people. They're alive and they feel like they're in some stranger's house. That's what I mean by the lack of belief in themselves. Not some kind of thing you say with your mouth. I'm talking about, and these are things that I've come to realize over time in terms of like these distinctions, right? Because when people say all these things about the belief, like I just thought like, there's something wrong about like saying this stuff. Like, why are you even saying it? And then I realized because they don't actually feel it. They don't think they belong here. They don't feel like they belong, that are humans, or that they don't think that existence is good. That's my ultimate thing that I always talk about. Like, and if you can, that is the main thing you got to figure out is why don't you feel like you belong here? Why don't you think existence is good? Why don't you feel like you belong here on Earth and that you belong in the skin of a human being? And that is the main question. I'll leave it at that.
All right, Kaiser, what you got for us?
What's good? You hear me well?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So actually, I was in the chat and I wrote, "Can someone define self-esteem?" Because I've always sort of all these concepts, right? Such as self-esteem. What's the other one? I don't know. Affirmations. All these things have always kind of made me feel a little bit insecure, actually, about myself in a way. Because I'm like, well, what do they mean? But actually, after speaking to adult supervision, I think what they're truly trying to get at is self-mastery, which is a little bit different, right? It's like, okay, you have your id. That's the stuff that, tells you what you want in life, right? You want a nice car. You want a nice house. You want nice women. It's your ego, right? Your the so-called brain in control of that mechanism. Then you have your super ego, right? Your unconscious state. So I think when they say a self-esteem, what they're trying to say is, it's the agglomeration, or rather, the totality of all of that stuff that then allows them, or rather to make them feel like they deserve something. Because I was speaking to my girlfriend a couple of days ago, and one thing that she said to me is, Kaiser, you don't seem to limit yourself on what you can have based on what you value yourself versus what's out there in the market. You simply tell yourself you want something, you go for it. You present yourself as competently as possible, depending on how much you want it and if you're not being dusty. And then the universe will decide if in this instance, again, instant, this is all temporally limited. This is localized. It's never trans-temporally expanded, where that's not the other issue. Someone thinks if I'm not good enough now, somehow it means I'm not good enough in the future, which is a lie.
I like that because I think the time aspect, I was talking about ebbs and flows, and we talked about that time at noon when you're sweating and your back hurts, right? And all that kind of stuff. I like all that, as the ebbs and the flows of the self, and where, I mean, the observer can still notice the happening of Ike, or the observer can notice the happening of Dr. Thunder, the ebbs and the flows of Dr. Thunder happening, right? The different moods and the sugar highs and the sugar lows, the heights of confidence and vigor, and then the oh my God, what the hell am I doing? I can barely see straight, can't even put two words together today. All those things, to be able to see all those things happening and still have a whole, a totality, a full container, that again, tying it to what I said last, that still belongs here, right? That belongs here on earth. And that's a concept that I borrowed, by the way, from Ayn Rand, the one that stuck with me from a long time ago, where she said, the man that belongs on earth. And that one, I was like, that's it. That's the thing. That's mental health right there. When you actually think you belong here. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's quite a way to put it. Here, let's try to get through this last point. So,
you know what I'm saying? If I don't live by my rules, I know why I failed or why it didn't work. If I live by the rules, though, that I learned in the game that I got, that shit works. It's consistent.
Yeah.
It's just about being disciplined and sticking to the script throughout the whole time. But the rules work. You apply the rules, that shit work.
Yeah. It's a formula.
For sure. We was hustling.
Okay, so stick to the script.
What do they say? Trust the system, is that what they or believe, or whatever? I think trust the system, stick to the script.
No, trust the process.
Trust the process. Yeah, trust the process. That's what they say. Trust the process. Trust the process. Yeah.
Work the system. Yep.
What do you think about? Do you trust the process, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, this is interesting. This is there's different things that he could be saying by stick to the script. And probably different things that people hear. So when he says stick to the script. Now, perhaps, especially for the intuitives like Ike, who want to be able to make changes as they're going. And for me, sticking to the script, sticking to the dynamic script, right? So the script is, aspects of it are writing itself. And to that extent, perhaps what we're just saying is have a resolve, be willing to see something through, right? From beginning to end. And perhaps by the time you get to the end, it is not what you thought it was. Okay. So in that way, I can totally endorse sticking to the script. Part of the issue for an intuitive is that often is the case that the script is being dynamically composed. It's being composed in real time. At least significant aspects of it. Now, if a person is not an intuitive and requires a plan, to the extent that they have adequate capability to be able to foresee issues that may arise, and contingency plans, backup plans, X, Y, and Z, then following the script, sticking to the script is great. To a person that doesn't have very much experience and therefore wrote a script that is going to work for about 5 minutes until they actually encounter an actual issue, then it may be problematic. But I take what it is that he's saying to say there's certain principles, there's certain rules. You want to follow those rules. You want to see something through. You know, if you say you're going to do it, follow through, get all the way to the end before you reevaluate. I remember my dad, who was my saxophone teacher all the way until I went to college, and he was a great saxophone player himself. And so I got what I constantly call an unfair advantage, which was my dad had the skill that he saw in me, and he was able to give me significant advantage by giving me the game, as it were, when I was very young. I got 3 to 4 lessons a week in an attentive ear on the practice room. I lived with my teacher, right? So that's a significant advantage. And I remember one time where he had assigned me this composition, this song to learn, this piece of music to learn. And I started learning it, and I went back downstairs and I said, hey, and I don't really like this music. Can you give me something else? And he says to me, let's here, I'll make you a deal. Go back upstairs, learn the music that I gave you to learn, master that, and then if you still don't like it, then we can start working on something else. And so what happened was I went back up and I did the work, and guess what happened? I actually fell in love with the music. I actually liked the music. And of course he knew that was going to happen. And there's a process there. There's a sticking through, you know, I get to a certain point where like, is this really worth an investment? I'm not sure if it is or not. But he said, look, stick to the script, you know? So I take that to mean, take it to mean that. And in that way, I can fully endorse it. So.
Yeah, I can definitely endorse that as well. And wonder what Kaizo's thoughts are. And I like how you kind of broke it down in terms of, and that's why I asked you, Dr. Thunder, you stick to a script in terms of the different kind of personality types. Shout out to Kevin Samuels, okay? I think that he was a good example of a script writer. I'm not going to psychologize him too much in terms of, you know, make it personality. But everything about the way he kind of presented stuff, given his list of high value man attributes and this and that, right, was very much in that script mode. He was probably one of the best out there on YouTube doing that kind of a thing. And if to that person who is inexperienced and also not an intuitive, whatever, following those kinds of scripts, perfect, right? Where you're like, okay, you do this, and this. You have to have this. He had that all the way through in his business channel when he was doing that thing with Ramil and all that kind of stuff. He always had like these lists, these principles and stuff. Not my bag, okay, not my thing. I like philosophy, okay. I like it to be in the air, and then I just kind of drive through, as you described already nicely. But I think that, you know, I just wanted to mention that Kevin Samuels was one of those very good kind of script type people, and he did kind of follow certain scripts as well. But what are your thoughts about sticking to a script there, Kaizo? And by the way, the sticking to the script thing, for me, the way that it manifests itself goes back again to that whole thing of, I believe that existence is good, so that when I wake up in the morning again and I gotta get up and go through this routine, right? Mm-hmm. There is no question, right? I'm not looking at this script. It's like, yes. It's like Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, where it's like, yes, you wait, yes, let it happen again. Let it happen again. Yes, no problem. Let's go again. Let's iron that shirt again and go out there again. No problem, right? It's good. It's a good thing. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah. So if I'm asked that question, I think I want to break it down into like several different moments. So sticking to the script, right? If you're not a polymath, what that means is you have to develop yourself and your skill. So if you're a guitar player or whatever it is, you stick to practicing 4 times a week, right? 1 hour every day of those 4 times, and you don't deviate. You don't start to say, I'm not seeing progress. Or if you're a computer programmer, you stick to it until you've at least reached, let's say, skills mastery. And once you have skills mastery, as Ike said and Dr. Thunder earlier, then doors open up by themselves because there's a shortage of people that stuck out the 10,000 hours to get a certain proficiency. So there's that element. And the thing what that Ike just mentioned now as well about, let's say, routine and sort of maintaining that kind of self mastery is, well, there are certain areas where once you already know the script, you don't need to reinvent the wheel at each turn, right? If you already know the wheel can take this amount of load, stick to that script because you already know it. Okay, wake up every morning, meditate for 5 minutes, drink some water, right? Go to the gym 4 times a week. There's certain scripts that once you already sort of created that sort of dichotomy, you don't need to deviate from. Now, I think as an intuitive person, you might want to have, let's say, a higher representation of a script, aka God, right? You can't worship a lower level God like everybody else, because now you have to kind of put your, the target at a much higher level. This then allows you for that dynamic fluidity that will obviously make more sense for your goals because you don't have a rigid framework. But of course, if you're not intuitive, hey, seek a lower level God, right? Go seek the worship of that God, prostrate yourself, and don't deviate from that God worship. So I think generally that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Here, let me do something real quick. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, let me do that. And this, and then, okay. I'm touching.
Gregory.
Okay, here it is. No, it's not that one. Oh no, it's guest two. Okay, here it is. So let me copy this and put this over here, and then I'm gonna head over to the other screen. All right. There's Kaizo is still with us. Let me see here. Let me put this here. There we go. So, salute to Dr. Thunder and Ike. This nice super chat here. Gregory Scotland, thank you for the support. Very much appreciated. And if I could get you to give us a recap, Ike, and then we'll do some final words here, and then we'll go from there.
Excellent. So I think that he started off Nipsey Hussle, that is, okay? He's got 10 points, and he started off with the idea of giving it your all, okay? And I immediately started to see that the battle is going to be internal, okay? Especially in the world of the free out here, so-called free people, in the land of Western, democratic, wealthy, relative to the rest of the world people. You are free to do these things, and the battle is going to be internal. And every subsequent thing that he mentioned, sticking to the script and the hard work and all those other kinds of things, are all internal battles. All the things that will challenge you in that realm have to do with your own personal blocks, the reasons why and the excuses that you could give, including the statistical excuses such as systemic racism or systemic this or historical that, right? Even those as well are generated or could become, I'm not saying that they're always necessarily an excuse, but they could become an excuse, and they could stand against you. Okay, so I think that everything that he has said so far has been consistent in a certain way, albeit rather scripty, rather like, very what I would like to call external, right? Non-intuitive, where it's like, okay, stick to the script and know this and do that. And I'm just like, okay, how or where or what do you mean? That's why I keep bringing it back to do you belong here on earth? Do you wake up and take in that deep breath and say, yes, I am here. I should be here. I belong here. Okay. Good, bad, or indifferent. All the things that have happened to me are my doing. Okay. All the bad things that happened to me are my doing. All the problems that I'm facing, I'm going to be the one that needs to solve them. Okay. That is the state of mind that you need to be in. And that in there lies the glory and the real enjoyment of life. I think that is my encapsulation of the 5 points that have been made so far.
Yeah. Kaizo, what you got for us?
Yeah, I think ultimately, obviously, with a message like this, is geared towards different people at different levels. So there are those who actually should just stick to this script as he's stated, like Nipsey Hussle, and there are those who can go and take down the, let's say, unpacked version. But the main thing is either you take the unpacked version and you stick to that script, which is the higher level God I was talking about, or you just take what Nipsey Hussle said at face value and you stick to it. Either way, depending on the level and process that you're following, it will still be very useful to you, because you'll actually be able to have actionable information, and also you can be able to judge your journey towards God, right? Either you go for the higher God, aka what you and Ike have done here, unpacking it, or go for the the idol God. But the main thing is you worship something, because I even think in the Bible principles, right? I know God doesn't like idol worshippers, but it is better to worship a God like let's say Abraham with Melchizedek than just be a heathen.
Melchizedek.
All right. Well, thanks, Kaizo, for coming through. And I'm going to go ahead and drop you down now. Thanks for coming through. And Ike, yeah, I mean, I thought we had a good conversation. I wanted to cover this. There's a lot of the. I mean, we've covered a lot of sort of, 10 keys to this. 5 rules for that. 15 ways to become more organized. We've done a lot of these. And this one really stuck out to me because it's a little, it's sort of, it's a little more general what it is that he's saying, and a little more sort of, I don't want to say base level, but, So anyhow, I thought it would be an interesting sort of conversation. Base level not being a lack of profundity. It just means sort of perhaps less developed. Let's put it that way. Effective, still very effective. So anyhow, that's all I have for now. I thought it was a great conversation. Folks should go back and check that out all the way from the beginning. That was a really, really good conversation about meaning and purpose and value and all kinds of things, and the work ethic. Should you work hard or smart, or all of that kind of stuff. It was really, I thought, one of our better episodes. So please go back and check that out. Also, you can support. Likes are free. Super thanks for the Replay Gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. And also become a channel member, where you'll get access to all archived videos. There's all kinds of content. I basically, after about a week, the Car Thunders and some of the other stuff that's a little too spicy to leave up, I put that stuff all behind I put all that stuff behind a paywall. So if you want to support, you can do that. And if you'd like to buy me a sandwich, send me a Cash App. So that is our time. Make sure you go over to Ike's channel. Make sure you go over to Ike's channel and sub to his channel. A lot of great content over there. And we're going to have a case closed this Sunday. I think we're going to have a case closed this Sunday. I actually have a gig that bumps up all the way to 4:00, but I think we may just have it on Ike's channel again this coming Sunday. And yeah, it'll be a trending topic. I mean, there's so much stuff that's happened just this week. I mean, there's a ton of stuff to consider. And then also make sure you come back tomorrow night for Two Dads React. That'll be show will be about 10:30 or somewhere around that time. And that's going to be great. And check me out in the morning for another Car Thunder. You know how we do it. We're keeping it moving. Make sure you get over to Ike's channel, watch his content, support his channel, subscribe, join, all of that good stuff. And we will see you next time.
Peace.
Out. Oops, that was the wrong button.